everybody, to another fascinating episode of The Dream is Free. I'm your host, Michael Theophil. I was going to say something else, but I'm not going to be silly. We have Tony over there, Renee lurking.
Renee's there too.
And our special guest, she goes by Ivory Wolf.
Oh, Lord.
Rawr. Bianca Valencia Criscuolo. How you doing, Bianca?
Good. How are you guys?
Good. I'm excited to do this show because it'll be the first time we talk about God on it, in like an extensive way. He's definitely been mentioned before.
Sorry. Oh yeah.
But not to the extent that we will, because we are both followers of Yeshua, and I just thought when asking you to do it, we talked about it a little bit, but I thought it'd be cool to have a male and female's voice talking about it, young male and young female. But before we get into him and how awesome he is, let's talk about Bianca. Where's Bianca from? How your family life, your upbringing, and basically what kind of got you to where you are right now.
Yeah. So my name, obviously, Bianca Valencia Criscuolo. I do use my full name, and Ivory Wolf is something that has followed me for a long time. I can't even change it anymore because it's such a meme about like my page. I was born and raised here in Connecticut, Easton, Connecticut specifically, and I was raised specifically in a predominantly Christian household. I would say my mother was very highly practicing. My father, not so much, but definitely more so now. And I actually had a total turn away from Christ when I was much younger due to some like traumatic things that I went through, and was actually Wiccan for quite a few years.
I know. I remember you telling me that. I'm excited to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So through the grace of God, he definitely pursued me all through high school, and I committed my life to Christ probably, I'd say end of junior year. And then it became like the all-encompassing, most important thing in my life. And as much as I'm an artist full through, and that's how my soul was created to be, if I died today, I hope it was to be remembered as a good Christian.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what's most important to me.
Have you always been an artist?
Yeah.
Like you were painting and stuff as a kid and all that?
I tell people often I felt like I wasn't fully literate without painting or drawing. Like it didn't feel like I was encompassing truly my emotions and what I was going through, even be able to talk full the way through without painting. And then honestly, painting led to my love of language in a way that I hadn't expected. Trying to describe my artwork led to me loving poetry, and then poetry is now so integral into my work that my pieces, like, it's not even a finished painting until there's a poem with it. So I've always been somewhat around that.
Mm-hmm. Where'd you go to high school? Easton?
I went to Barlow.
Oh, Joe Barlow. That's right.
Yeah, I went to Joe Barlow. I went for the first 3 years, and then my senior year, I actually went to I think it was a magnet school in New Haven called ECA, which is Educational Center for the Arts.
Cool.
So that was, art was
Sorry.
always. You can ad lib.
No, I don't. I don't normally like talk at all, actually.
Yeah, and I like it. Like
And that's the way Michael likes it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't. I just like, let the girl talk.
No, be honest, dude.
Where'd you go to college?
I graduated from Parsons a few years ago.
Where's that?
It's in the city.
Which one?
Oh, sorry. Wow, that is
There's
a little
only
bit
one city,
presumptuous of
Michael.
me.
That's not true.
It's not. It's in New York. It's
Like,
kind of.
It's really where you live.
It's
People
true.
say the city.
No, whatever, dude. I'm not gonna argue about this all the time. All right.
I know.
No,
I mean, I think New York City is a city, but like viewers might not know.
Exactly. It's presumptuous of me to assume that if I say the city, you know exactly where I'm talking. It's the city.
Yeah.
I'm taking a poll after today. Honestly,
Go ahead. There's not
I'm
gonna
gonna
be
go
one
to
person that
Nebraska and ask them
responds.
if I say the city. What do you think of?
They're gonna be like,
Probably New York City.
no.
They're not gonna think of Omaha.
We can do another poll and say, the shore. What do you think? The Jersey Shore, right?
I don't think we need to do that one.
Well, I mean, I would say that's honestly probably easier for Jersey because I feel like what else, like,
Oh, yeah.
Where else would there be a shore?
Yeah, nothing else
California.
is-
no, there are shores, but like, I don't think people in California say I'm going to go to the shore, right?
Exactly where.
Like
gonna
Long
go- I'm-
Island, they'd
we
say
don't
the
know.
Hamptons.
Right. I guess.
I feel like
if
that's
they're gonna
very
Rhode
go
Island, they
specific.
say
To
Newport.
Jersey.
Newport
Yeah.
Beach.
But do
Connecticut,
people
they
say the
Fairfield.
city only for New York City?
I don't think so. That could just be me because I'm in this area and everybody. If I say the
No,
city
you're right.
here,
Me too.
But I appreciate it.
I don't think Boston, to be honest, but maybe if you go more north Connecticut,
Yeah.
they'd say
But
Boston.
you probably have viewers in other places that have big cities, so
No, I
I'm
think-
not gonna.
That's a good point.
Did you just do
Yeah, I know-
just the 4 years in the city for
Yes.
college?
Well, technically no, because I was a COVID college kid.
Mm.
So I
Oh.
did 2.5 years, and then the last
You
year.
dropped out. I'm joking.
Yeah, I dropped out of art school, guys.
By the way,
Either
everybody viewing, no one else can be funny except for Tony. Just want to point that out.
No one else is allowed to be. Got it.
Yeah,
okay.
like
I'll keep
he's
that
the
in
only
mind.
one that can make you laugh in the world. He gets upset if you make other people laugh in his presence.
Mm.
What
For those viewers who are watching right now, like Michael's just not funny. He's upset about that.
Class clown, all through middle school.
Yeah,
all
where
through high
Joe
school.
Barlow? Yeah, okay. Dude.
What'd you study at school?
I did an illustration major, and then I minored in Mandarin Chinese. So it progressed slower, but you got like a very full education around it. And then quite a few friends in my friend group were from China at the time, so I felt like it was important to like feel like I did not want to feel
That's
left
crazy. Your
out.
Cool.
school offered that.
Yeah, no, it was actually great. Well, Parsons is like 65% international students, and of those, I think it's something like 40% is like China and Korea.
Mm.
So there was a high population of kids that were international from there.
Yeah, I can relate. UB was like that.
Yeah.
University of Bridgeport's high Asian population and Indian.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not like an athlete, everybody else is literally from a different country. It's crazy.
No, exactly. I actually love that though. Like it was
Mhm.
one of my favorite parts about going to that school. And I think even if I had hated, like obviously I love the school. There were some amazing teachers, some amazing classes, but in general, I would have taken it all over again just to get the friend group that I got coming out of there.
What was it like being in school during COVID?
Oh, it was awful.
Yeah.
Like we have 6-hour classes as artists. Like it's miserable to do a 6-hour class on Zoom for like 3D modeling. You're gonna sit there and watch me on a camera make things out of clay and metal. It's just not fun.
That's tough.
Yeah.
I always thought I'd fail if I was like a student during COVID because I couldn't do the Zoom thing.
I will say they let a lot of kids slide. Like I think the first 2 semesters during COVID, everybody got an A,
Mm.
even if you didn't do any
Sounds
work.
like Shoe, Sacred Heart.
Yeah,
They
like it was.
let anybody graduate.
You.
Me, I was top student in my grad program.
Did you like develop some of your style there, or did you already go in to college with your unique style?
Oh, that's actually a great question. I would say a little bit of both. I think I always leaned into illustration because I loved comics growing up, and I loved like all different types of illustrators from like manga to regular comics to like just online funny comics.
Mhm.
And so illustration wove its way into my like natural expression.
Cool.
And then while I was in college, I developed it further with a couple of artists that I really got attached to. And then it kind of sideways a bit as I began to explore my dreams through my illustration and became very non-narrative and very just kind of abstract. But it still held that illustrative style to it. And then, so I think that there was some naturalness in there. But again, I think most artists' style is kind of an amalgamation of several artists that you fall in love with as a creative.
Yeah.
Were these people that I'm sorry, I didn't cut you off, but were these people like that you met at school or artists?
No, they
like,
were artists that I
established
grew up, liking
watching?
or watching them do work.
What are some of them?
You can put me on the spot, and they're all gonna fly out my brain.
This
Oh, that's
is
the
when they're like,
worst.
what's your favorite movie?
Bianca's a fraud.
I'm a fraud, guys. Actually, that just means I developed my whole style by myself.
Yes.
So maybe not a
But
fraud.
from God.
From God, yes.
I take back my
the
question.
first great artist.
I take back my question.
We'll put them somewhere. in
Well,
my
what is
head.
it? What's the saying when you like put it to the side? We're
Put it on the
gonna-
back burner.
Put it on the back burner.
Put it on the back
yeah.
burner.
We'll
Yeah.
revisit that. I'll let them float around in my brain for
Yeah.
a minute.
Yeah. Well, that's floating. Tell me about the Wiccan years.
Oh.
How'd you get in? Because I'm a hybrid, so half werewolf, half vampire. So
Got
we're
it.
kind of in the same world in that sense.
Yeah.
How did you begin? How deep were you? Did you go to like Wiccan meetups and stuff like that?
Well, I was
Do you still like commune with them and like, oh,
Can
yo,
we
guys,
also
come to
clarify
God?
what Wiccan is?
Yeah, what's going on
I'll-
here?
Witchcraft, black
yeah,
magic,
Yeah,
right?
it's the practice of black magic, and anything slightly related can kind of fit into it. There's like varying degrees in which people feel like, oh, Wicca or Wiccan is very specific practice, and other people who use it as like an overarching term to describe the practice of black magic intentionally. Like you can do it unintentionally by participating in things, especially nowadays. Like tarot is a very easy thing to get into without being like, oh, I'm gonna go practice magic, but it is tangentially
Tarot is
related. Tarot
a
cards, yeah.
subsidy
Tarot cards.
of
Yes,
Wiccan?
technically anything, and it's if you were to think about it as dark magic or witchcrafty in any kind of sense, that's kind of related usually to Wicca. But there are people within that community who are like, it's a very specific practice. Like you could, if you want to use Christianity as like a side way to describe it, like Christian can describe several different ways to practice Christianity, right? There are people who practice it and believe one way, and then there's people who practice it and believe another way, and there's some that are super strict about it. It's only this way. It's the same kind of thing a little bit. I think I was honestly was I middle school? I was in middle school. And so I had this massive turning away from Christ because I had witnessed or been present during the attempted suicide of my cousin. And it was hugely traumatic for me. I didn't know what to do with it. It was, I was very young and I was already suffering with my own struggle in life, being somebody who felt like they didn't fit in the world. And then all of a sudden I had this immense confrontation with death in a way that I was not expecting. And I was like, this God cannot be real if this is the way life is. And so I tried to be an atheist for like maybe 3 months. But that's just, my soul is not built that way. I am a spiritual person by nature, so it was just not gonna fly. And then I had a couple of friends who practiced, and they started just like, they loved their tarot cards, they loved their crystals, they loved talking about speaking with intention over things that you wanted or people that you wanted. And like there was a lot of just energy manipulation conversations, and I was just there on the edges for a little bit. And I think because I was so sensitive towards spiritual things, it was kind of like an addiction. Like it felt super good. There is this gratification when you practice those types of things because there's an outcome that's very tangible. If you're talking to a medium, you're getting something immediately. And it satisfies a part of you that feels like you're lacking control in your life. And I had gone through something that made me feel very out of control. And I had already felt very out of control for too many years. So I practiced that for probably, I think 4 years, 4 or 5 years. And it was very, very prevalent in my life. Regular. And I did have friends who practice. So yes, Wiccan meetups were a thing. We didn't necessarily call them that. It was just hanging out. But and I avoided anything that I felt like could be related to other people. Like I didn't like the idea, like some of them liked the idea that you could curse or talk to people or like do something that would affect other people. I didn't really like that in general. So I avoided that personally, thank God. Like I really am so glad that I avoided that, because I think the level of guilt on my heart would have been much, much more than it is. And then it was interesting how like it shifted for me. My mother forced me to go to a Bible camp for like, I think it was
like a summer camp?
Yeah, or it's like maybe like a 2-week retreat or something like that at a church that she was attending and that I had kind of been attending, but against my will. And I went and I was very angry. I was also like heavily goth. Like I was a very goth looking kid. They were not related, by the way, because I want to make sure that those subcultures are not related. They can be. There's definitely overlap at times, but they're not always related. And I just already did not fit at all in with the church kids.
Yeah, I bet.
But I was there, and I can't remember his name, but there was a youth leader, and he was in a heavy metal Christian group, and he like saw me and like immediately clocked me. It was like, I'm gonna talk to you, and we're gonna hang out, and we're gonna make sure you're not alone. And he honestly was just very friendly to me. Wasn't preachy to me, didn't say anything to me, was just conversational with me. And I at the time also loved very like intellectual conversations. And he's
Not as much anymore.
Not anymore. No. At the time, it was like a new thing for me. Where I was like young and I was like, yeah, philosophy.
How old were you at this point?
I think I was probably 16. So it'd been quite a few years of practicing, and then also, I was about to turn 17. And he sat down and had a conversation with me one time because we were talking about religion and spirituality, and I was just talking about every other religion under the sun except for Christianity. And he goes, why do you know so much about all these other religions? And I said, well, I have friends who practice Buddhism, and I have friends who practice, and obviously some of my friends are Wiccan, and I have friends who practice, who are Muslim, and I just wanted to know their religions well. I felt like it was respectful. He goes, why don't you know anything about Christianity? And I was like, well, I was raised in it. I already know enough. I don't really care to know more. And he said, I think you have quite a few Christians in your life, and if you want to love them properly, you should probably know at least a little bit about it. And I was like, I have a high moral compass when it comes to certain things, and a strong will about very specific things. And if I've said something and I have my words tied to it, I feel very responsible for it. So I was like, oh, you're right. I probably should. I definitely should know a little bit. And it took just that. That's all he did. He was just that, and then we just talked and hung out for the rest of the time. And he prayed over me, I think, at the end of he asked me if he could pray over me at the end of the retreat. And I just started reading the Bible. I was like, cool, all right, I got to know a little bit. And I'm like, let me just read. And as soon as I began reading the Bible, I had this sense of peace when I was reading it in a weird way. And then I would write these angry letters to God about like what I disagreed about with things. At the time, I didn't know that was prayer, but I was praying. Mm-hmm. And I started to do that regularly. And I realized when I wasn't doing it, I was having night terrors, and I didn't understand why. I was plagued with the inability to sleep. I'd already suffered from insomnia for years, but it was fearful unsleep. Like there was full, just constant me waking up in the middle of the night screaming, crying, like night terrors. And I don't know if the epiphany happened post or during when I realized that it was me pulling out of something dark and into something light. But there was a night after 3 or 4 consecutive nights of sleep paralysis that I woke up into a dream like 3 or 4 times, panicked, like I couldn't get out of the dream. And it was just these dark figures and very demonic dreams. And I woke up finally physically, but I couldn't move. And I saw something on my chest, like pressing down. I couldn't breathe, couldn't speak. And I said, Lord, okay, if you're real, I don't know, but we're going to try this. If you're real and you can get rid of this for me, I think this is what I've been practicing and dabbling in. I don't want to have anything to do with it anymore. If you get rid of it, my life is yours, I promise. Gone like that, immediately. I said, in Jesus' name, and it just whoosh, right off me. And it was the most incredible feeling I'd ever experienced in my life. And I don't think I've actually had like a serious nightmare since that night. If I do have nightmares, I think the Lord takes them from me and I don't wake up remembering them. It was a total space, totally redeemed, which is why now I love talking about dreams with people. That was kind of my shift. And at that point I was like, cool, I already made a promise, I got to follow it. Yeah.
Tell people what you do though now with your art.
Yeah.
'Cause it's a little different than other artists, I would say.
So I am a contemporary artist full time, and I both paint and illustrate my dreams, and I do theological studies through some of my series of artwork. Specifically, my dream stuff is right now the precipice of my studies, I would say. I illustrate long-form accordions of my dreams non-narratively, but I also do teach, or I do workshops with people how to begin to explore their dreams creatively through a theological lens. And I just did like a whole lecture series with MP Dream, which is a great app that helps you record your dreams. And right now, I'm actually doing, it's kind of in the works right now, I'm doing all the grant application for it, but I'm trying to do a large exhibition on dreams with like 6 or 7 artists that are all Christians to reignite the conversation of dreams among Christians. Like we live in a time where dreams and visions for the youth are so important, especially now.
Mm-hmm.
And there are several books in the Bible that are just dreams and visions. So I don't get why we don't talk about it at all.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't practice it as like something to be aware of and how to begin to approach it. There's nothing really. And if there is, it's a little bit hokey. So I prefer to put it in other people's hands and not become a guru for them, but just sit and like, here is how you approach this or begin to. But I'm working on a project that is tentatively named the Shalom Project, which is basically, it's dreams in Hebrew. And it's this idea that each artist would explore dreams through their medium, and together it would be a large exhibition that would then travel and sit in church spaces as a gallery. So that I also have a strong, like, I love the way the old cathedrals were built, and I think there's something lacking in this idea of
The New Age churches.
yeah. Like I feel so strongly. I understand. Like I get why too. Like
I'm with
we don't
you.
want to pour a ton of maybe money into a space like that, but I feel like when you make something and you make it in joy, you're doing a form of worship for the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like when you have something that is beautiful, it exemplifies an absolute truth of God's, and that also glorifies Him.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like spaces that don't have that are potentially missing what it means to just be beheld by a space meant to glorify the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like the churches, when I've had difficult times, I've preferred to go into a beautiful cathedral to sit and be relaxed than just like a New Age church.
Yeah, I mean, I know where you're coming from because I still wrestle with that. I'm not going to name the church I'm going to right now because I don't want to like call them out in a sense. I do love the pastor. I think he's great. That's the only reason why I could stand the whole pre-show that they do with the, you know, it's like clockwork, all of them. Every single non-denominational is like 3 or 4 songs to begin with. And it's like, you know, the whole thing. And it's just like this whole show. And then, you know, then they do the whole, you know, video presentation of like what's going on in the church. And then finally we get to the word, you know? And I personally just wish they could skip all that and just get right to the word. Like I went to a Good Friday service and I brought 2 friends who, you know, Matt and, oh, you don't know Joey though. Matt and Joey. And golly, I mean, talk about a show. I thought I was in a Hallmark movie.
Oh, Lord.
No, I swear, I really did. And of course, that night, the pastor wasn't speaking.
Oh.
And I was itching to get out of there. Like,
I
just
know.
itching to get out of there. And I'm looking, and I felt so bad. I brought them to this, you know, which they actually were really, you know, they took it better than I thought. And then even one of them, Joey, Matt was busy that Sunday. Joey came with me Sunday, and we saw, and the pastor actually spoke that it was, you know, Easter Sunday, and he liked him. But you know, I can't, and I've wrestled with that for the last, you know, 13 years, I guess, not having a home church because of that reason. And you know, I told myself with this experience, like, dude, you know, drop the ego. Some people need it to get here. And you know, when people are like, I don't know how genuinely, you know, how genuine these people are that are going. Cause like people are on their phones, people are there to just like, it seems like meet up and hang out with each other rather than like worship or listen to the word of God. So it was tough. Like someone was shopping in front of us on Good Friday on their phone during the service, and I'm just like, get me out of here.
Good Friday deals.
I know in those instances I have to, because I do think there is a thing which is a righteous rage that sometimes fills us for certain things, but at the same time I have to think, okay, maybe that's somebody's family member who they're bringing who doesn't attend church ever.
I don't know.
Doesn't
No, these people were like,
they're
hey,
familiar.
saying hey to everybody, like everybody knows them, and you know, I don't
That's
know.
unfortunate.
Yeah.
So do you think that like oh yeah, I thought it just left out of my head. Because obviously the way like the discussion that happens, like when I talk with my parents about like Catholic faith,
Mm.
stuff like that. Going to church, there's a lot of like reasons why you should go to church. One, like God asked you to go to church in the Bible, and also the community. Oh, you would disagree with that?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't say that necessarily.
It does. Where two or more are gathered as a church, actually.
Right.
So
Okay.
it's this is where I think. Probably,
And I have my quarrels with the Catholic Church, like heavy, like even just as much as the non-denominational.
I want you to finish your question.
Yeah.
Well, it was more just like a thought, like going to church. There's an importance of there being a community there, worshiping in a community, also, right?
Mhm.
But then you're also there personally as yourself, right? Because when I'm like over like on Good Friday when I was at church with my family, there's like these children. And the parents, like, they obviously do not come to church regularly. It's the Easter people, you know? And I find it very disruptive that these kids are playing with their toys in the thing. Like, when I was a kid, it was you're there for a reason, and you respect the church, right? And it was making me really upset. And I'm watching these parents talk to each other throughout the entire Mass. I'm like, what are you doing here, right? But, like, it's also you're there for yourself to further your faith, and you're there to get the word and stuff like that. So where's the line of like maybe this church like isn't like a positive place for you personally, or are you thinking too much about the other people around you, and should you just be getting more out of it for what the reasons why you're going, you know, like where's the line there?
That's interesting. I feel like it's, I don't know. I'm kind of 6 to 1, half a dozen the other on that, because I do feel like, frankly, it's important to worship in community. But honestly, you could even say that this is church right now. The fact that we're willing to talk about the Lord and spend time maybe talking about His Word, maybe conversing about it in ways that we disagree and agree with each other. That is kind of, in my head, a form of even just scholarship around the Bible, just doing this. At the same time that I do think that there is benefits to going to church, even if, like, you will never find a perfect church. You won't. It's just not going to happen. I think, actually, there was a pastor who I had many years ago who said that church, more often than not, is a hospital for those who need healing and not a house of the holy. And that stuck with me for a very, very long time. It attracts the type of people who probably, there are those who have a strong walk, but it attracts those who have come from much darkness and have not yet established a walk with the Lord, to be kind and peaceful with them. Even those who it's been years. Like, I could honestly say my father's been in church since before I was born. I don't think he's had quite a walk with the Lord until the past, like, 2 or 3 years. And it was so evident in who he was as a person 10 years ago to now. He's a totally different person. But it's only been 3 years, but he's been in church. It took that long for the walk to really begin, and the word to sit on his heart, and for him to begin to pursue something. And it took tragedies, and it took near losses of things for him to finally need to rely on the Lord, and then it came in. So I don't know. It's I think you have a responsibility to yourself, to whatever is going to feed you the best as a person. And if you know going to a certain church it's not going to be that, then you leave and you go somewhere else. Don't ridicule and try to, it's not going to do you any justice or any good to really kind of be like, this is not how you ought to be in church. And it doesn't do you any,
I mean, there is a right way to teach a child, you know, how to be.
I agree with that. I also think sometimes we're too strict in churches. Like, David danced before the Lord. Why? Like, there's churches that I've been to where, like, I don't necessarily agree with all of their, like, honestly, when I went to church in India, because I went to India for the filming a documentary that is still on pause, but I ended up going to one of these churches. I didn't speak any language. I have no idea what they're talking about. It could be things that I totally disagree with theologically. But their worship was like, I had never experienced that, where it was just utter free dancing, joyful singing in the Lord, in the presence of the Lord. I wept in a way I had never really wept in a service before. And I thought, wow, we miss this at times. Like, their children are just running around and in their own joy. And it's this like, there aren't words to talk about, like, the experience of being in. And this was people who had every right to be reserved and not want to dance with joy because it was in the slums. So I went to the red light district of right outside Mumbai to film, and it was they were more joyful in their worship service than any worship service I'd ever been to in the States. And I also felt so strongly in that moment. It's so easy to even go to a worship service at a church and be like, I don't really feel this today. Not really, I don't really like the guitar singer or the whatever. Like, it's not vibing with me today. And
It never vibes with me, honestly.
but that's when I shifted my brain towards thinking about not worship as a thing that I feel like I do with regular music, but instead it's an act and a choice that I do to show the Lord that I love him. So I lift my hands and I praise and I worship even if I don't feel it.
Yeah, and my thing is I feel like I don't need to do that. Like, he knows.
But why wouldn't you do that anyways? You're spending time glorifying him. It's any work that you do then.
Right. I mean, I do it in my day-to-day, but, like, in terms of, like, having to sing and at the services and lift my hands up, and, like, to me, I'm more fraudulent doing that than I am just being quiet in my head talking to God.
Then that's fair enough. That's totally fine. That's how you choose. If that's how you feel most intimately there with the Lord, I think that that's totally okay. I think that there can be a strictness on it for a lot of people. And I think that sometimes, maybe for others, I just feel like there's a degree of judgment around however someone chooses to do it, basically. You know what I mean? Like, you can, for example, I used to pray in my journals way more than I do now, but I paint more regular than I ever have. And in those times, I'm just constantly in contemplation with the Lord. So I feel like I actually pray more. To someone else, that you would be like, where's your journal? I used to see you writing all these prayers down to the Lord. What happened? So I do get that. I think, I don't know. I just feel like the way that people have chosen to express, there just ought not to be judgment around it.
Yeah, of course. No,
around it.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with that as well. I'm more of a journal guy too. Like, every night, constant. Like, it doesn't matter if I get home at 2 a.m. It's a part of my routine. 'Cause it makes me feel a lot better. Whether I'm having a good day, but most importantly, if I'm having a bad day. Yeah, I mean, what would you say to someone who's, new in faith, that they got the fire early, that whole, like, it's pretty chaotic. They're all gung ho. Everything's good right now. You know what I mean? What would you say to someone who's new in faith that is out there?
That's hard. I would say A, the fire takes tending.
Yeah, definitely.
B, that means sometimes going and collecting the kindling. So you have to go and you have to do your own work to really make sure that stays. And also, if you burn too strong, sometimes, like, I think it's okay because you're new in your faith. I don't want to ever quell that fire. Be aware that as you move forward in it, sometimes the degree to which you burn might burn other people. Like, if you burn too strongly for a moment, like, you could end up causing someone to have apprehension to the wonderful flame that is Christ.
100%.
So a flame is a great analogy. So think of it like you don't want a bonfire in your house. Sometimes you'd like to have a candle by your bed when you talk to certain people. You don't necessarily need the fireplace even.
Yeah, that's great advice. Because I was an atheist, and when I became a follower, I was definitely like that, very much so. Walking around with my Bible, trying to converse with anybody that wanted to.
I do think there's a beauty to it.
It's looking back, I'm like,
you're embarrassed. I was embarrassed.
Not even embarrassed. Just like it's better to let them come to you.
1,000%.
And then you have the knowledge and wisdom to, guide them in what they're asking, rather than, like you said, burning them. Because like before being a Christian, I hated Christians. I thought they were like these dweeb losers that, like, I'm like, why do you think life's so great? Like, you're just chill out, dude. But then I get it, I actually got saved. I was at a, what are the people called where they come to your door?
Jehovah's Witness.
I was at a Jehovah Witness church.
Oh, no. Like the Church of the Latter-day Saints.
I don't know, dude.
Yeah, no, he's correct.
Yeah, I don't know. All I know.
Wait, yeah.
Nerd.
Yeah.
There's a nerd over there.
It's good to be a nerd.
Thank you.
Respect.
God is a nerd, you know.
No, he's a carpenter. Anyway, yeah. Anyway, so he's like me.
How is that
Not
like an
you.
answer?
Anyway,
And you don't do carpentry.
Can I? I did
What do you whittle?
for years.
What do you whittle?
So-
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
You whittling?
So rude, interrupting my story.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's Tony.
We're talking about your testimony
I
too,
know,
which is
and Tony. Well, that's the demon by him over there.
Oh Lord, yeah.
Yeah, it says you. We're going Jehovah's Witnesses over there. Yeah.
Well, God uses anything. Clearly, you don't know that.
He does.
um,
He does use anything.
So,
Mhm.
you can help me talk.
Jehovah's Witness Church, go.
Because before I was raised in the Greek Orthodox Church, but at a Romanian Greek Orthodox church, and I'm Bulgarian, so I really didn't know anything. And then at this one, it's in Southport actually. The church, I don't even know if it's still there. It could be. I'm sure it is. But that one service was just literally because their Bible, they've taken stuff out. They've got, weird stuff with it. But the one service I was at was just simple. Who's Jesus? What did he do for you? Who's the guy on the cross? And I remember leaving being like, wow, okay. I think this is it.
That's so interesting though, because I feel like what was that shift in you that felt like it just grabbed you enough to go from atheist to that in the midst of a single service, or was there any
There was
that you were experiencing?
No,
that
there
kinda
was
set
like,
it up?
I was questioning. I've been a questioner of truth since I was young, and so I was on a journey ahead of that. Who's governing this world? Who's in power? Learned
Yes.
about the elites,
The
learned about
existential thinker.
Satanism and all that stuff, and and then it's like I believed in these evil people,
Mm-hmm.
and then so I thought to myself, well, I mean, if there's this all-powerful evil being, there's got to be an opposite to it. So then, what's the opposite though? Which God is it? Who is it? What is it? And yeah, no, that song, I always think about, I don't know, Tony knows the name, I'm sure. I once was blind, but now I see. What's that song? I don't know. Of course, now you don't know.
I really don't know. I
Yeah.
once was
Is it a
blind,
church
but
song?
now I see.
No, I know the exact song that you're talking about. I don't know the name of it, but
Like,
I do.
I
It's
felt
sung
that.
all the
I'm
time.
gonna Google it. Hold on. You can keep going. I'm just I'm gonna go
Carry
up.
on.
Like do
Wayward
my
son.
job over
He's
here.
a support.
I felt that. I really did. I was blind, and then I thank God every day that He saved me, because I don't know how people live without faith
Do
and
not
go
know
through
at all.
life without it.
It says here that that's Amazing Grace,
Yes, thank you. Amazing Grace.
which is a church song, right?
I don't know,
think so.
but I really felt that.
Zing
Is that an anthem? Is that
grace.
it's not,
I don't know. Is it? No.
this is embarrassing.
No,
It
it's
sounds
not.
like I thought Amazing
That
Grace was like an American song.
saves A wretch like me.
I remember I sing that in church. Our church sings that.
What?
No, it's not the national anthem.
Okay, I'm like sitting here like, am I crazy?
No, Amazing
I
Grace is not
remember
the
singing
national
that.
anthem.
No, I know.
But it sounds like an American song.
It's like
Song.
triggering me in the way that like
An
it would
American
have for that.
song.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's not, the
It's
song
sung
is
all
not
the time at openings for stuff, so that's why I think my brain is.
Yes.
Um,
I thought I had I always wondered people who don't have faith. I understand it. Like people who have what, Tony?
No, I was laughing at Bianca because the water bottle.
I'm trying to.
No, yeah, you're doing a great job.
People who have the dark thought of wanting to kill themselves. I always think how could you get to that spot when even if you feel like you have nothing, if you have faith, you know that there's something. There's something. Now, obviously, I'm coming from a place of I don't know what it's like to get there, right? But I always think like if I have no faith, I could see how you could feel so alone. I feel like you want to say something to that, Bianca, but I feel like I understand how you could feel so if you don't have faith. If you get to a really low point, you really would feel like you have absolutely nothing, right? That's the only way I can kind of understand it in my head.
No, I think it's hard because I don't want to take that away from people of faith who probably also do experience that, speaking personally from experience. Because even in scripture, I think it's Ecclesiastes, is like so full of Solomon's woe and how alone he felt, even with somebody who quite literally was a beloved of the Lord's. And then also you have, I think Job is a great example of that. He was had every reason to want to just be absolutely done with life. I think what you're touching on, though, is this idea that and yet kind of statement where it's like they feel this way and it's there and it's present in their life, this desire to no longer exist because it's such suffering. And human beings we are made now in a way where there is no one who does not suffer because of our own actions. But in general, I think that faith probably is the thing for a lot of people who, even in those spaces, have held on to just, and yet there is at least this. Because I trust God and I trust his plan. That's true faith, is what you're kind of touching on. But without it, it's very easy to see where somebody can devolve to a degree where that is the only option in their head.
Has there ever been like either like a poem or a certain scripture that, I mean, this is also kind of putting you on the hot plate, hot stove,
hot seat.
we're taking it off the stove, we're putting it onto the hot plate. Has there anything that like spoke to you that like has stood in your
Romans
brain?
12:2.
Huh?
Yeah, do not conform to the way of the world. That's in my Instagram bio.
Wait, say it again?
Because I'm one of those basic girls.
Ivory Wolf.
You know, I tend to be not basic in a lot of ways. I allow myself certain things that are just so absolutely ridiculously basic. But yeah, Romans 12:2, which is do not conform to the way of the world. The longer scripture goes on and kind of explains what it means to be in the world but set apart from it at the same time. And I feel that so strongly as somebody who also, I think visually presents as a way that gets me little old ladies on the street who go, you need Jesus. And yet I can walk into spaces and people who would normally never allow a Christian near them will sit and talk to me for hours. So I think for me, that's kind of been I don't think that fully answered your question because it wasn't related to necessarily keeps me like.
Well, I think that's a great thing about you is you have that ability. You have that open heart and open mind that I think people feel when they talk to you. Also, you're very educated. You're very, very smart. So I think you can bring a lot. We didn't even say this like yet, but like we know each other all from being at the Knowlton. And I wrote this in your birthday card, but it's definitely a blessing, you know, that we both came to this common space because our conversations are awesome. You know?
No, I know. I love them.
I really do. And you're really, really smart, and you spent a lot of time like studying and really understanding all different. I mean, you know so much about a lot of things, about a lot of faiths, and that's theology and dreams and just life. You know, I think you have that energy, so I understand why people are able to open up to you and stuff like that. It's a superpower you have.
Oh, that's so sweet.
It really is a superpower.
That's really God's grace, truly, because I feel like for the most part, naturally, I'm a very awkward individual. Like it's not natural for me. I'm also highly introverted. Like I'm most likely to enjoy my time alone than I am with others. But the Lord did a lot of work on me.
Were there? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Renee.
Oh, were there any like other parts from like when you were studying like other faiths and stuff like that? Anything that like you found that you liked from other ones that you kind of? I mean, you're eventually now would you say you fall under a certain umbrella, or would you say you're all encompassing? Like
this is interesting. Actually,
not to put yourself in a category because I don't
box me in or anything.
Yeah, I don't want to box you in.
I actually just had this conversation recently. So I have a really good friend who's a philosopher and a theologian. He lives in the Netherlands, and we talk probably weekly. And it's so funny because we've been talking for months and months and months, and neither one of us clarified the degree to which we box ourselves in under what name of Christianity do we practice. And he and I both said, well, I've been to a few different churches, and I don't think I would identify with either one. And have friends from many different religions, and I respect certain things about the way that they do stuff differently than the way that the Christians I know do things. And at the same time, he's a philosopher, which is honestly, in a lot of ways, looked down upon in the church because it's considered a dangerous way to pursue intellect, because it's questioning highly. It's highly questioning of everything. And it's questioning in a way where you have to consider all sides. Like, it's not about, is this the truth that I want to prove? It's about, what is this truth in the absolute sense of the word? And frankly, I don't think I can. Like, I've been to several different types of Christian churches. I disagree with some of their theology in every single one. But at the same time, I respect certain ways that they do other things. Mm-hmm. And I love the way that they portray community, I think, is Christ-like in certain ways. And then at the same time, I have friends who are Muslim who I adore, and I think that their diligence I respect in ways that I don't see present in a lot of Christians. Because it's so easy sometimes to live under grace and not still give things over to the Lord when he asks them. Like, for example, certain things, I have a very addictive personality, so I've avoided a lot of things. And in general now, there are still things that I have to, like, even just television, the random things that, like, I know get in the way of the diligence of my practice with showing respect and love to the Lord in my studies or my readings or my just time spent in prayer, that I know I have to give up, and I do not.
Yeah, I recently, we've talked about it actually.
Yeah.
That recently happened with me, and you know, it's almost like you hear a faint, you know, voice just being like, and it's, you know, for me, it was just sounded like my voice, wasn't like Michael.
No, it's a still small voice. I think what it's referred to
and
often.
It was just like, you know, you want all these things with downtime and this and that, but you can't give up this one thing for me.
Yeah.
And I wrestled with that for about a year and some change. And I'm on, you know, it's been 170 plus days now, 174, that I haven't. And I don't want to, you know, go back to that life that I had, that I was doing. It's crazy because, you know, that feeling of, you know, it's something you love, let's say, but like, it's not meant to be, in a sense. It's a crazy feeling. But going to piggyback off the philosophers, I was at House of Chronic, Housatonic, when I gave my life. So I had this really dope philosophy professor there. Don't know his name. I could see him right now. And we obviously explored philosophers, and then we did Christian philosophers. And there was this one Christian philosopher, and this really stuck out to me, that you know, kind of just helped me be like, why wouldn't I, you know?
Yeah.
He was like, life is like a game of cards, and you could bet with God, live a great moral life, and then die, and he doesn't exist, but you lived a great moral life, and, you know, whatever happens after.
And so
happens.
You gave up some things.
Yeah. And then, or you die and he's real. And it's like, yeah, that's dope. We did it.
That's actually a great argument for
Yeah. Or you bet against God and you live a life, you know, immoral to his standards, you know, and just to yourself and selfish and all those things, and you die and he doesn't exist and it's all good. Or you die and you're in trouble. You know, is the best way to put it. So, I mean, it's like in those gambling odds, it's like, why wouldn't you do it? You know, it's like 3 out of 4.
Like, live the moral life, you're saying.
Yeah, like bet with God, you know, live a good moral life. Obviously, no one's perfect. You're going to have slip ups. You're going to be quick to anger sometimes. You're going to, you know, judge sometimes, but you know, that's the grace of God, and you know, asking for forgiveness, you know, after a day, you know, because like any day, even if you think you're good and you did great, and like you were, you know, oh, I didn't remember, you still there was something, a thought or this or that wasn't up to his liking. So, yeah, that always stuck in my head. And also for my scripture, not that Renee cares, Psalm 37:4 has always been mine. Delight yourself in the Lord, and He'll give you the desires of your heart.
Amen.
That's always been my. I don't know. When I read that, I love King David. I wrestled with a lot of the same stuff, I guess you could say, he did. So I could relate to him and I just love the Book of Psalms in general. Just a bunch of love poems to God. It's like, they're great.
No, Psalms is beautiful.
Yeah.
And we love David. David is the most epitome of being a human being.
Yeah, literally.
And still being beloved by the Lord before the covering of Christ. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, that man, love him to death. He does so many bad things
I
and does
know.
so many good things. But he always delighted in the Lord, and he always, his heart was always to do well by the Lord and glorify him, even if he struggled with it. And I think that's so important, because even, oh my God, I'm forgetting, who was the king that was there before him?
King Saul?
Yeah. Saul was, by all standards, a pretty good king, generally speaking, but was not obedient. And did not do as many bad things as David, but was never obedient to the Lord when the Lord called. And David might not have been perfect, but he was always obedient when the Lord called him.
Yeah. What else? Covered the churches. Tony, you want to say something?
Do you want to say something?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really have much to say, I guess. I mean, covered a lot. I mean, I guess you never really went back to who your influence is for your artwork.
Oh no, actually that's a good point. Sorry.
How would you even describe I know you said you're contemporary, but like how would you really describe your artwork?
That's
and the look of it.
It's hard. So my innate reaction is to say something like abstract expressionism, because it does kind of border that. But then there's elements of figurative in some of my works, and everything that I do illustration-wise is non-linear narrative, which basically for illustration people know that that's not real illustration then. Because illustration is meant to be part of a narrative and tell a story. Like that's typically how you differentiate illustration from art. Is art can say something in just its presence and doesn't have necessarily something to illuminate, but illustration typically illuminates something. And in terms of like influences stylistically, I'm not remembering, but in terms of influences in general, I've had some of the best mentors I could possibly ask for. And one of my current mentors was also my favorite artist in college, that was the Lord's will in a way that I could never have even dreamed for. His name is Makoto Fujimura. And when I tell you, I read all of his big books in college. Art and Faith, The Theology of Making is one of my favorite books I've ever read. And somehow, by a very long, winding road, he's now a mentor of mine. So cool. I'm so grateful for that.
Where's he?
Where is he based out of? So he's based out of Jersey. His home is in Princeton.
Oh.
And it's beautiful.
No, Princeton is actually very nice.
It is. They have a gorgeous property over there, him and his wife. And his wife is also one of my mentors. She's done, just poured into me so much. Her name is Hedgen, and she's the CEO of a small nonprofit that works internationally, which is when I went to India.
Cool.
And they do anti-human trafficking work, which is amazing. And I don't know, like honestly, my mentors have probably influenced me more than anybody else, other than the Lord, obviously. Most of my work, there's a lot of my work that, like I have a whole series, like I have my origin series, which is truly just a deep dive exploration on the book of Genesis. And that's it, the first few chapters. So things like that are probably going to influence my work, whether it's intentional aesthetically or not. I don't know. That kind of just happen while I'm contemplating and praying. And
so if I came to you and I said, hey, I had a dream about, I'm in a building and there's people there that I know and this happened and this happened and that happened. How do you go from there? I don't want to give my real dream out in the public.
I feel like Bianca would be like,
fine.
oh, maybe be a little more specific.
Yeah, I probably
yeah,
would.
yeah.
Well,
I would probably be like, you know what?
Where do you get the knowledge to determine, oh, you know, the warehouse represents X?
Oh, okay. That's actually a really good question.
Thank you.
Yeah, now you got it. Yes, very good.
You landed. You stuck
Yes,
the
we
landing.
got there.
Yeah, I always do.
Yeah.
Took a couple tumbles, but we got there. Okay, so for anybody who has any idea about dreams, I do subscribe a little bit to a lot of Carl Jung's writings about dreams. I think he has a very good grasp on the collective consciousness, which is the idea of certain symbols that transcend what our day-to-day is, understanding how almost anybody could walk up to the street and ask them about a serpent and they have some type of idea of what that could represent, right?
Mm-hmm.
But so there's a large dictionary of things like that. And when you go to art school, I feel like you could get a special reading on symbol in a way that you don't on a regular education, because it's such an integral part of history of art. So I would say I approach that from how symbols have been taught to me with general cultural meanings to them. We talk about that. Like, we can sit here and really consider, because of even, a really good example of that is even meme culture, right? Like, it's something like has such tangibility to it without having a deeply read context to it. Glass half empty is something that you can have a kind of attach a meaning to. When we talk about dreams, and there are baseline symbols, and then there's personal symbols, and then there's the positive and negative correlation to the same symbol is usually how I'll talk to somebody about it. We begin by talking about the ambient energy of your dream. Did it feel negative? Did it feel positive? Did it feel like you weren't sure? From there, we kind of then can contextualize whether or not, let's say a warehouse, right? Does that fit into a personal symbol? Do you have a very personal connection to warehouses for some reason? Probably not. Some people do, right? Some people might be like, oh, actually, I grew up, my dad worked in a warehouse, and maybe there's something tied to that. Okay, we can begin there, talk about that. That's when we begin to approach it from a very intellectual sense. I always tell people that if you grew up in the West in any semblance of that, or have any influences from Western culture, you have to know scriptural symbols of some kind. There are full decks of Judeo-Christian symbols and what they mean and what they could represent. That's important to know because they are woven into the base of our culture. All of Western culture kind of exploded out of the development of Christianity, so it's deeply part of our understanding of symbols across the board. It is important that even with my Christian clients, though, if they have other cultural influences, the Lord speaks to us very personally. So sometimes he will come to us in ways that are more tied to our language, our culture in a way. So it's a very holistic approach when it comes to dream interpretation, which is why I don't put out books about like, here's how to read your dreams. What I do is I sit with people one-on-one and we get to know each other. We talk about where they're coming from culturally, where they're coming from in their life. We talk about the dream overall, what it could mean, what's going on, where does it tie in maybe, and if it doesn't tie in, how could it be prophetic? Like that's kind of how I approach one of my workshops, or even like I have a couple of one-on-one clients that I work with. I don't know if that answered your question, but
It did.
Okay.
How, like, because I feel like some people would think like, oh, dreams are just dreams, right? You just have them. How
Yeah.
important do you think are they in like? This is weird. I don't know how to word this question.
How important are they?
Yeah, like, do you think they actually have a lot of impact? Like, or do they actually really mean a significant amount? Like,
Yeah, I think so. I think it's an incredibly undervalued part of our lives. It's a third of our lives. All of us dream every single night. Even if you enter REM sleep at night, you're dreaming. And if you don't recall it, it's just a muscle that you haven't worked out, basically. That's it. If you feel like you don't dream, it's truly just you're not remembering them. And frankly, for us to kind of, this is the first time that we exist in human history where we don't talk about dreams as some type of truth. Every culture on the planet across the board has used that in some way as like a baseline to talk about something. Whether it's constantly truths and it's always prophetic, or only some people get visions, it's been deeply woven into most cultures. So for me, that speaks to some type of absolute truth that is gifted to us as human beings that we kind of avoid now. And frankly, I think so many other things contribute to like the lack of, we'll say, dream health, where you're like having them regularly, remembering, or even having good ones. And I firmly believe that, yes, a lot of dreams are from the Lord, but I think dreaming is something that was built into us as human beings as a means of, if not self-reflection, then pattern recognition in your life. Like, it's truly just a tool. No different than like, yes, I can sit here and use, it's a gifting of some kind, like my art is a gifting. I can sit here and use it easily and not for the right things. And maybe there are things where it could become not good in my life. But then truly, like if I use it properly, it can be done to glorify the Lord in a way that's incredible. Dreams are the same way. You could make it a God in your life easily, very easily, in the same way people make astrology or tarot a God in their life. So I try to be very careful about that, but I do think it's hugely important. There's whole books of scripture that are just dreams and visions. The first book I ever felt can totally, which is so funny now that I look back on it, felt like the Lord wanted me to read from front to end, was Ezekiel, which is literally just like tons of visions, basically, about the future of Israel and like all of these predictions that he had, and incredibly potent visuals in ways that like are so watered down. Like because of reading that book, I think my maybe second year in college, I had to do like a large form essay that was a whole year long research paper. And I did it on the depiction of angels in art over time from early Catholic art to current contemporary understandings, and kind of the overlay that the Catholic Church did with gods at the time and why they don't look like truly biblical angels.
Some you depicted that on some in your art pieces.
Yeah, I do have a couple pieces that are like, my Elohim series is a study of heavenly bodies, which is basically, it's a little bit less direct. Like, I'm not painting direct angels. I do have the Ophanim, which are like just paintings full of eyes, but that's a little bit more on the nose.
No, it's on the eyes.
Yeah, it's on the eyes.
I'm allowed to be funny too. What comes first in your art, the poem or the art, like the physical, or first does it come a vision and then does it go into sketch or, you know?
This is okay. This is
You
so
know?
funny.
What's the process?
No. That's actually
your brain?
a very poignant question, because literally last week that was the basis of my conversation with my friend who's in the Netherlands. And he was asking me, he's like, well, I want to know more about why each of your pieces doesn't feel finished until it has poetry, and how do you do it? What's the process like? And honestly, the way I've described it is they are their own individual pieces, but they are also one complete piece in the way that sometimes a marriage can be looked at. In that they are independent entities, but they are one flesh and completed in their final form together. And that being said, the way they develop, it's rare that I paint them and write them alongside each other. Typically, I have like an anthology of probably 400 poems that are just unpublished and don't have a piece that they belong to. And I have pieces that don't have poems yet, that sit there for probably 2 years, some of them, that don't have poems. And all of a sudden I'll be writing a poem and I'm like, oh, I know who you belong to. And the same way goes for like, I'll be painting and then sometimes like a poem will bubble up and I'm like, there we go, you two are together. And that's kind of how they find each other in that way. It's less that they're like written to be in communication with each other. That's actually very rare for me, that I'll sit and I have a thought about a piece and then also have a poem. But when it comes to the process of my pieces, some of them I just begin as like I'm just praying and they just they just come right out. Other times I'll be in church, or which maybe I shouldn't be doing, but I'll be in church and all of a sudden I'm sitting in the corner of my Bible and I'm like sketching out a little painting because it just came to me like that. Or a dream. Like I'll wake up, so I have these little journals. I think I have one in my pocket right now. But I have these little journals that I keep, one in my car, one in my pocket of my pants and my coats. There's probably like 40 of them just scattered. So I can just write things down or sketch them. And there's one by my bed. There's one in like every purse that I have. So that is for the paintings. They'll come out that way. Like I'll be driving, I have to pull over. So I don't know if there's really a pattern to it.
You have a very beautiful brain.
Aww.
I just think that, I don't know. I think it's really cool. I think you're a really cool person. I don't know. I just want to
Feels
tell you.
like this podcast is really hyping me up. I feel great.
No, I just think there's not many people like you out there. And yeah, it's really, really cool.
Thank you, Renee. That's so sweet.
Where can people find you?
My
Give me your
Instagram
address.
at Ivory Wolf. The Knowlton.
The coordinates. We need the coordinates.
The coordinates. Currently, this building, this room is coordinates. But in general, Ivory Wolf, my Instagram. And then my website is biancavalenciacriscuolo.com. So it's easy. It's easy if you can remember the name. And honestly, I thought for so long, I don't know if this was recording when we were talking about it, but truly, like, I thought forever about using my last name for so many different reasons. And I almost dropped it entirely, like, about 6 months ago, and was just going to go with Bianca Valencia because I felt like it rolled well. It's easy to remember. And it was my mentor, Mako, who was like, don't do it. He's like, when I first came to the States, the trend was that, like, you wanted a very English name because it was like a John Jones or Christopher Lee. And if you didn't, then your artist handler would tell you to change it. He's like, I almost became Michael. And I was like, I'm so glad you're not Michael because Makoto Fujimura is beautiful. And I was worried because I felt like it wouldn't be memorable at all. It'd be hard for people to remember if I introduced myself. But he's like, it's okay. That's going to be the thing that will make it memorable and stand out and worth it if they're willing to remember it. So that's why I use my full name. He also, I think, just liked it because he loves, I think, like certain artists do, just the Christian early Italian artists who all have like the very long Italian names. He was like, yes, you should keep it. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it does have a nice ring to it.
It's annoying to write out when I'm doing my like stuff, but
it's part of you.
It is.
Yeah.
So yeah, my website, and honestly, I have a newsletter. If you sign up for it, I always have stuff that goes out on there. I put my poetry and a new piece out on there almost. It is at least once a month. Sometimes it's twice a month, but I try to do it at least once a month. And it's also, I usually have thought writings there from whatever. If it's a philosophical, theological thought that I've been contemplating, and then all of the things that I'm working on currently, projects, articles that have been written, stuff like that.
It's awesome. I'm gonna subscribe.
Yeah.
I am. After this.
That is also on my website if you want to get that.
That's funny.
Any advice to young Bianca out there?
Oh, young Bianca. I actually wrote a poem yesterday that was me meeting myself for coffee, my younger self for coffee, because it was a trend that was going on. I was like, this seems kind of fun and cute. And in general, I think my only advice would be to find people to mentor you that you love and respect, not just want to be with because they hold status. I think when you have people who are willing to pour into your life that are both spiritually aligned with you and also can intellectually push you or push you in business or whatever, you're just going to benefit. And I wish I'd had sought mentors earlier in my life.
They're
every
important.
single time.
Yeah, I'm still looking. Yeah.
You can contact me at.
It's honestly, it's hard
if
for
anyone is out there, reach out, dude.
it's
like,
hard for us strong-willed individuals who are very prone to our own self-study. It isn't easy,
No.
but honestly, I prayed for it for years.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I won't get into it. It's I just don't think it's for me. But I will do something we don't usually do. I'm gonna pray to end this episode. Just feel like it's fitting. So Lord, shout out to you, big guy. You say when two or more are gathered, you are there amongst us, and there couldn't be any more evident in this episode. To Bianca, to Renee, to Tony, myself, and the viewers, thank you. We love you. In Yeshua's name we pray.